Hello everybody, Steve Farmer here. I'm no longer in the Camus Towers. I heard somebody coming in, so I headed up to the roof. And you know what? There's a pool up here. So I'm in the cabana, watching some girls at the pool. And in this video, I'm going to bring you fragments from round one of the 2012 U.S. Amateur West Regional. Our first in our Bloopers series for this video is the game between Phil Kirby and Harry Lee. I have no ratings on either of these gentlemen, so I'm assuming they're youngsters. And we joined a position where white just played bishop takes d5 and black plays queen to d7. And I just wanted to give you a few quizzes in this wonderful montage of bloopers. This move was a mistake, and white failed to capitalize on it. So if you're playing white, what would you play here? Pause the video if you like. See what you come up with. Okay, that's enough time. This should be really simple. It's knight takes e5. Hey, yeah, I know you were pinned, but a pin's not everything. Especially when you reveal the pin, you're also attacking your opponent's queen. If d takes e5, then queen takes h5, and white has just picked up a pawn. Let's go through this game a little bit more and see if there's any other funny bones about it. So, queen to d2 was played. Now bishop takes f3, g takes f3, queen takes h3. Well, okay, now black is the one pawn up. Now c3 should be played, but he played f4. Pawn takes, bishop takes, knight to d4. Uh-oh. Does he see it? e5. Yes, he does. By moving the pawn, he allows his bishop to cover f3. Very good. Pawn takes, bishop takes, now knight to b5, but there was a better shot with queen to g4, and if bishop to g3, now bishop to g5, and this is just pretty much a dominating position for black. Okay. After knight to b5, this allows bishop takes b7, and the game is equal once again. We're going to race through this rather quickly because we're just looking at the highlights of the blooper reel. So we're not really too much interested in the actual playing of the game for these. And I hope you don't think that this is opportunistic on my part. But I really don't care because it is opportunistic on my part. Okay, so we get into a little bit of combination moves here. Rook takes e5, rook to e4, rook takes, bishop takes, queen to f6, rook to d1. You know, it's strange that even up here, high atop the Camus Towers at the cabana by the pool on the roof, that you can still hear the sirens in the street down below. Okay, so here black takes on b2. And I think that white missed his chance. He's 2 pawns down, but he has some counterplay if he looks for it. And that's what you always got to think about when you're down in material. How do you complicate things and get some compensation? You can play bishop c6. The idea is that he's simply going to check on e8 and take the pawn on f7 and just be 1 pawn down and have bishops the opposite color. The big point here, though, is if he takes the pawn on a2, he gets into trouble after queen e8 check. King h7, now bishop to d5. This is hitting the queen, and this is a big problem for black, because if he goes queen takes c2, then bishop to e4 check forks the king and queen. And no matter where else the queen moves to, bishop e4 check is going to come. Oh yeah, I think queen a5 offers a good defense, because if bishop to e4, he's got f5 because the queen's helping that. But, you know, simply queen takes f7. And white is down 2 pawns, but the black king is terribly exposed. And I think that black's going to have to be very careful not to fall into checkmate here. I mean, the threat right now is bishop to e4 is very dangerous at this point, because it'd be followed by queen to f8 mate. Yeah, so very dangerous to take the pawn on a2. But simply queen to a3 is equal. Although black is 2 pawns up, I think white has just enough compensation to make up for it. Alright, back in our game, we're going to play through, get to the next area. Okay, here, if black doesn't play the right lines, he's still not completely winning here. He's 2 pawns up, and he's got to exercise caution. White just played queen to f3, but he could have tried bishop takes g6 and c5, bishop takes f7. If he plays pawn takes, then we can go queen to c4 check, and the queen comes into f7, and black's going to get mated. So c5, bishop takes, king h8, rook takes a7, queen a7, queen c8, king g7, we check, he runs up, we check, goes back, and now bishop c4. And actually I think white's a bit better here. He's got to be careful of queen to f7 check, picking up the queen. But he didn't play that, he played queen f3, and now queen f8 was played. And all of a sudden the ball's back in white's court. He should have played queen to b5 check, queen interposes, trades, and king to f8. And again, black is up 2 pawns, but I still think the position's pretty equal. Bishops of opposite color give tremendous drawing chances. But let's go back to our game continuation and see where it goes downhill for black. Bishop d5, bishop interposes. Now he should just simply play queen to e4. He does not. And after c6, hitting the bishop, hitting the rook, we play rook takes a7, cd5, queen e7, queen takes, rook takes. Yeah, this is easily winning. And the other threat is to play queen takes g7 check, followed by bishop takes f7, and also the threat of queen takes bishop on e7. So yeah, black is just toast here. He plays queen to g4, king to g7. Here c6 doesn't work because the bishop takes f7, queen takes, rook takes a7. Yeah, this is bad. So king to g7, queen to e4. And now c6 was played, and this is a horrible mistake. Bishop to f6 would keep black in the game. But after this, queen to d4 check. You could just simply play rook takes, pawn takes, queen takes. Yeah, and this is over too. So c6 is just a horrible mistake. Now queen takes, pawn takes, and rook takes. Alright, and h5. And, you know, here we are at one move before time control at move 40. This is move 39. And they played on to move 63. Why? Now, I'm assuming that these guys were younger players. So they're playing for fun and experience. But I have a saying that you can win by resigning. If you're playing in a tournament, it's a grueling 6-round tournament. Classical time control. It's 40-2, 25-1, and that means the games could go on for quite a while. If that's the case, you need to conserve your energy. So if you're lost, you can resign, and hopefully you'll have enough energy to come back and win your next game. Alright, let's move on to the next game fragment. Alright, for our next fragment, we come to the game between Jan Jones and Raymond Tan. Jan is rated 1632, playing white pieces, and Raymond is rated 1912. Jan plays the London system almost exclusively so that he can avoid having to learn reams of theory. Unfortunately, it leads to a lot of dragged out battles like this, and the games can last for quite a while. This is why I suggest to people, if they're going to play in Swiss systems, that they really should play more mainline stuff. Not be afraid to get into tactics, because you're going to have to think, regardless if it's a positional battle or a tactical battle, you're going to have to think of how to get things done regardless. And in the tactical battle, at least, you have several opportunities during the tournament where the game's going to end rather quickly for you, so that you can get some rest. You know, conserving energy is a big part of it. Okay, so we join this game where white has just played rook to b5. By the way, let's note that white is up a piece for a pawn here, and he should have a winning advantage with this. But d takes c3 actually would be drawing for black, I believe. Pawn takes, and then rook to here, and this knight is pinned. So rook takes e5, bishop d3, knight takes, rook check, rook takes, king takes, and king f8. And it's dead level, okay? So this little combination that Ray went into could have easily been fixed up by playing d takes c3. But he doesn't. He plays f6 here for some reason. And now Jan plays rook to d5. But there's a better move. If you'd like to pause the video and see if you can find the best move for white to secure his advantage here, go ahead and do so. And when you think you have found a move, go ahead and hit play and we'll see if you got it right. Okay, the move to play here is knight to d5. It hits the rook on c7, so this forces action right away from black. He's got to deal with the pressure on the rook. And the question is, does he take the knight on d3? Well, let's look at that first. King takes, and now he's got to move the rook somewhere. And now we can play c4, and white should be winning this pretty easily. Going back, another alternative is to play pawn takes pawn, and after knight c7, rook takes d3, king c1, this gets hairy and crazy, but after c takes b2, king takes rook to d2 check, king a3, rook f2, rook to b2. We got a crazy mixture here, which is basically coming down to a rook versus 3 pawns for white's advantage. And white should be able to win this fairly easily. All right, let's get back up here, and there's one other move to look at. It's simply running away with the rook to a7, allows c4. We've seen a similar line with bishop takes d3. Yeah, white should win this pretty easily. Yes, unfortunately, things like this get missed, especially if you're getting used to playing positional battles. You start to stop looking for tactical solutions. So let's just breeze through the rest of this game real quick to see how it flowed. No real annotations here. Yeah, okay. So playing g4 was a bad mistake. Knight to e2 would have been better, would have maintained a slight edge for white. But g4, bishop e4, rook e1, bishop takes d5, and after knight takes d5 here, white's still a bit better. Rook to b7, rook to a1, e4, knight 3 f4, d3 check. Rook c5 may have brought equality for black. Okay, he played d3, and now white should play king to c1. He did not. He chose this opportunity to return some material. And now rook to d8. Now black's got the edge here. Rook takes a5, takes b2, king to e3, rook to e8 check, king to f3, rook e to e2, and we can see the writing on the wall here. Knight f4, rook takes check, king g3, rook fd2, and now a horrible mistake. He should probably try rook to a8 check, king h7, rook to a7. The idea is maybe we can play knight to h5 and rook takes g7 type stuff. And now if he goes here, we can just guard the pawn, at least for right now. And black's a bit better, but I wouldn't say he's easily winning this. But after the move in the game, rook to d5, he is. Now g5, rook takes d2, g takes f4. This little in-between move is something that slipped Jan's mind, and he resigned. Alright, let's move on to our next game. Here we join the game of Victor Yi, who's rated 1855 playing white, against David Lopez, who's rated 1600. Now, if the tables were turned in this position, and black was the 1800 guy, I wouldn't present this game. But since David's playing black, I thought it was very interesting that he found this attacking motif. White now plays knight h5, which is a horrible, horrible blunder. Black's enjoying some good play here, but after queen to c3, black's only a tiny bit better. However, after knight h5, there's a tactical refutation here. Let me flip the board for you. Black to play. What would you play? Pause the video, and when you have the solution, hit play. Okay, of course, knight to d3 check is the move. And white is pretty much obliged to capture, because if he just moves the king over, bishop takes d4, cd3, bishop takes f5, things are just starting to flow in on the white camp. So he should take right away. Now bishop takes d4. And queen to c2 is played. Bishop takes b2 check. Continuing the onslaught. King to d2. I think David missed a good shot here, though the line he chose is not too bad. And I think queen to a5 check just ends the game rather abruptly here. King to e3. Queen takes f5, hitting the knight. Queen takes c4 check. d5. Queen c7, hitting the rook. But we take the knight anyhow. Because if queen takes b8, we got rook e8. And now king to d2, rook to e2 is mate. And if king to f2, well, this is not much better. If he goes to g3, this is mate right away. If he goes to f1, we go queen f3 check, and then we mate here. And if he goes to g1, we go check, check, and mate. So, after king d2, then simply rook to b7, and black is up a piece and a pawn. Right, so in the game, though, David played c3 check, which is also good, because after king e2 or e1, doesn't really matter. Queen e7, bishop e3, bishop takes f5, is up 2 pawns now. dg1, bishop to g6, just securing his king position, and white gets frustrated and tries to throw the kitchen sink at him. Knight takes pawn, king takes knight, h5. Rook b to e8, rook h3, queen to e6. Rook h to g3, now queen to f5. And after pawn takes bishop, how do you avoid the sneaky little tricks that white's trying to throw at you? Pause the video, and when you're happy with your answer, hit play, and we'll see if you got it right. Okay, the move David played here I thought was pretty cool. Rook takes e3, check. The answer is pretty much force. He has to play rook takes e3. If he plays king takes e3, well, there's a problem with that move. Mate. So rook takes e3, but this allows queen f2 check. King to d1, and queen takes g1. Rook to e1, queen g4. No choice but to bring the queen up or the rook up. Well, if it's the rook, then rook f1 is going to end up delivering mate. So, yeah, let's look at that. Yeah, if he plays rook to e2, then this is going to bring mate. So queen to e2. And now I thought that he could play rook f2 and close the game out a little quicker. He played queen takes e2, which is just fine because he's a piece and the pawn up, which makes sense. You know, simplify. No need to make it risky or anything, but rook to f2 is just winning the game very easily. Now the point here is if queen takes, and c2 is checkmate. Nice pretty little mate. So king to c2, rook takes e2, king to b3, queen e6, king d4, queen d5, and there's nothing you can do to stop the mate coming, and a5 is mate. But okay, he just decided to simplify down. No need to really think about it, because this is an easily winning endgame, being up a piece and 2 pawns. As a matter of fact, after king c2, g5, rook to e6, rook to f6, white finally resigned. A nice win by David Lopez, who's rated only 1600, and he beat Victor Yi, who is rated 1855. And David just missed out by a few points to one of the feature games that Ed Kessler had won. Alright, let's move on to our next game fragment. Okay, we joined this game of Ethan Tang, who is rated 1587, playing Bohan Lee, who is rated only at 1213. And we're going to see why he should be higher rated, and maybe Ethan should be lower rated. Ethan now played knight to d4. Now, black's already enjoying quite a good position. He's shattered the white king complex and has a nice little attack going. But this move is an out-and-out blunder. Can you see why? Pause the video and see if you can see why this is a mistake. Black to move and win. You have 2 seconds. Alright. That's your time, folks. You didn't even get a chance to pause the video, did you? Alright, queen takes d4. And the point is, if queen takes d4, knight f3 check is forking the king and queen. So, this just wins a piece. Okay, we rejoin this game now several moves later, and white is played on. He's down a piece and 4 pawns. There's no point in playing on. But I just wanted to show you this part because it's a cute little end. He plays knight takes d3 check, rook takes d3, g2, rook to d1, rook f1, and rook takes, and for his sense of humor, pawn takes rook equals mate. Okay, let's move on to our next game. Okay, in this game we have Pratik Pinasetti. He's playing white. He's rated 1915. He's playing Dan Burns, who's rated 1660. And at this point, Burns gets burned. He plays knight to e4, which is a bad move. He should have played bishop to f5, but okay. Let's get on with what actually was played. And now, simply pawn takes bishop. Knight takes c3. He's trying to get tricky here, but after queen d3, he really has to just bring the knight back, and he's given up a piece for a pawn. Knight takes e2 simply doesn't do anything because even after rook f e8, queen to b5, white's still winning this. So he just brought the knight back, and after bishop to d2, yeah, Pratik was probably rocking back and forth in his seat at this point. I lost the game to Pratik in my last tournament. I also lost to Joel Banawa. It was a horrible tournament for results, but for knocking off the rust, I think I did pretty well in the tournament. I accomplished what I wanted to, at least. Let's put it that way. But Pratik has a really bad habit of rocking forward and backward in his chair. Very exaggerated. And it really pissed me off when I was playing him. And I went and told the tournament director, and he came and told him not to do it, but that was of little help. And by the time that it was really getting annoying to me, on a psychological level, he just flat out pissed me off. He did not make a friend with me that day. So, he's probably doing the same thing here, because I saw him doing it during other games during this tournament. Pratik, I hope you calm yourself down and start putting that energy into thoughts rather than your body motions, because you needed it here. Rook f e8 was played by Burns, and now rook a b1, b6, rook f e1, rook to e7, bishop c1, queen to g6, bishop to a3, rook to e6, rook ec1, and now I think black should just take on g4, and white's better, but he played rook a e8. He doesn't want to just settle for white being better. He wants to try and trick the little guy. Rook to b2, knight to a5, queen to d1. Okay, it was better for Pratik to play knight to e5 here, but we're not going to critique that part. Queen takes pawn, knight to e5 now, queen to h4, and now bishop to g4 would be good for white, because after rook to h6 he can just play bishop to h3. But he did not do that. The rocking boy played bishop to b5. And this is a bad mistake. Rook to h6. And now Pinasetti gets burned by Burns. King to f1. And now queen to h1 check. And the game is totally level at this point. Now king to e2, and the position is dead level after queen takes pawn. It's a piece and 3 pawns versus 2 pieces. Now, queen to g1 here would hold the game level. But the rockin' boy played queen to f1, and this is another big mistake. Knight to g3 check. The pawn is pinned. After king to d3, knight f1, black went on to win very easily. That was Pratik Pinasetti playing white and Dan Burns playing black. Alright, let's get on with our next game. And for our last fragment, we have a really interesting endgame between 2 lower rated players. We have Liam Matthews at 1228 playing the white pieces, and we have Troy Oberg rated 1417 playing black. Now black is up a pawn. He has a dangerous passed a pawn. And happiness is a passed A pawn, that is for sure. And also, we have the possibility of rook f1 check in there, and then promoting the pawn and queening and winning a piece, which really is looking pretty dire for white. But let's join the game as it unfolded here, where Troy plays a3. Very scary looking for white. But okay, h6. We have our own trumps in this position. We should use them. Now, if he plays rook h1 to stop that pawn, we just take on a3, and it's a draw. So a2, so that it can't be captured. And the threat is rook f1 check. So what does white do about this? He has to guard the promotion square of a1. If he tries h7 right away, get this, and he stops the pawn. But we get rook a6, rook h7, bishop f2. This seems to hold. So what about king to g3 here? Well, if king to g3, white would have to find a very special way to draw this game. And we'll come back to this in a moment, because this position can repeat. So after a2, bishop to d4, protecting the promotion square. Rook f1 is check. King to g3, promotes to queen. We take and take. So it looks like it's all over, right? And I think that's what white had determined himself. And he played h7, which is a horrible move, and loses. However, there was a way to go forward. And General Patton would say it, never dig in, attack, attack, attack. And the key here, well, I'll tell you what, I teased you before with this, so what would you play if you were playing white? Pause the video and come up with a plan. Take your time to figure it out, because you may see a saving grace like this again in one of your own games. Pause the video, and when you're happy with your decision, hit play, and we'll see what we come up with. Okay, the only move that I can see to save the game is king to g4. Now, if we go by a point count system in chess, where bishop's worth 3, pawn's worth 1, rook's worth 5, black should be winning this, but he's not. The problem is that his bishop has such a short diagonal, he has to keep an eye on that pawn on f3. He also has to keep an eye on the white pawn on h6. So where does he divide his attention to? Now, if he tries rook to h, well, let's come to rook h1 after we look at rook to a8, the frontal defense. King to g5, rook h8, king to g6, king to e7, rook f7 check, and we get this going on, rook f5, and if king to e4, go to rook f6, rook to g8, king f7, rook to b8, h7, bishop to h3. Okay. Black is almost out of the woods. He's able to finally get his bishop off that short diagonal and manage to protect the pawn on f3. So, how do you save the game? Okay, hopefully you paused the video and you looked for an answer here. The answer is the most astounding. Rook takes f3. Very beautiful. You're giving up your last piece and leaving your opponent with a bishop and a rook. So what happens here? If he takes, then king to g7. And the problem for black is if bishop to f5, he's just a move too late, and white's going to promote, and black's going to have to give up his rook for the queen, or play on in a queen versus bishop and rook situation. And if he decides to check instead, we can go to g6, and he might as well take, or he's going to be in worse situations. And after king takes on f3, there's no way a bishop can mate. So the game's a draw. So that was the frontal defense with rook to a8. What about coming in from behind with rook to h1? Well, then we get king to g5, and king to e7, and now rook to f4. And the problem here for black is that his king can't get up to help the pawn on f2, and his bishop can't get out without dropping that pawn, and white just will not advance his h-pawn any further unless his king is able to get up there without being compromised in some way. So this is a draw as well. So rook h1 was actually easier to calculate from this position here. But let's go to the game real quick because it ended a few moves after his move. He played h7, which is a mistake. Now rook to a8, rook to f7, king e6, rook to g7, rook to h8, king f2, king f6. Hits the rook, who's going to have to give way. And now king to g6. And the writing is on the wall. And he resigned after king f5. Because it's quite clear he's going to be able to promote this pawn. Alright, that's it for our game fragments from round 1. I hope to get on to round 3 maybe later this week or next week. I hope you found these fragments enjoyable, and I hope you give me good votes and comments to keep me encouraged to keep posting more videos for free for you. Alright folks, that's it for the wrap-up of the blooper reel from the 2012 U.S. Amateur West Regional Round 1. Until next time, good luck.